zone. Spyder see the red zone looks real cool. Hey! And a real jewel.
Hey!
High-powered offensive tool. Hey! This is exciting new CFL. Red zone. At the red zone. Not all school.
Exciting new CFL rules. That rules. That rules.
Spyder see the red zone rules.
It's real cool. The coolest. That rules. It's a real jewel. High-powered offensive tool. That rules. Super exciting new CFL rule. That rules. That rules. Spyder, Spyder, here comes Spyder's CFL's red zone rule. Hit it! Spyder, here comes Spyder, CFL's red zone rule. Hit it! Hit it! How you doing? That was 2 minutes. I'm gonna do something in a 2-minute. You're gonna find out more about it across Canada. I'm gonna do something a little different that I'm gonna do. You're gonna hear about it, a blitz, but I'm not telling you anymore. I mentioned it in my candlelight, low light YouTube sessions, but I don't want to give it away. But I'm gonna roll it out, okay? Before the Grey Cup, hopefully, okay? All right, how you doing? I'm back. Spyder's back, and this will be. I did 33. It'll be 34. I did 33, 34 back on my set. This will be 35, and the Caretaker one, a special, another special edition that I'm going to do a full professional presentation for Mr. Bob Young again, and with my optional provision part of my rule, the whole gamut, the whole thing. And I'm going to have enough time to do it, and I'm going to do it as best as I can and as professionally as I can, and I'm going to try to pull it off and do a good job for him. Okay, and for everybody out there in the Spyder CFL Red Zone Rule listening football land. Okay, so anyway, getting back to just one correction. My last session, I said Canada games. I meant to say the Canada lands, the Fed lands, Shannon Park lands, Canada lands. Okay, that are trying to develop and sell it off in pieces and so forth. They're managing the whole thing for the Feds. Okay, so anyway, by the way, like I was saying, when I looked at the mainland comments, I meant to say too, site, you know, Shannon Park, you know, may not be that best. It may not be that terrible as a site in relation to the other sites. I mean, yes, it needs a lot. It needs roads, it needs water, it needs electricity, all that, all the infrastructure needed. Trudeau's got to look after. It's his lands, okay? But now I screwed this up, thank God, but I'll keep talking as I'm doing this. Why did that happen? I don't know that happened, but it shouldn't have happened, but it did. So I have to go back, I guess. That is a drag. Why did that happen? Well, keep you posted. Something I was going to do, started my show, but it didn't work out. So I'll just see if it'll work out again. It happens sometimes. You mess up on things, That's the way it goes. But anyway, I can say something else, do something else, right? Yeah, getting back to the city councils and the mayor and the defeatist attitude. I mean, seriously and truly, you know, and they want you to believe this nonsense, you know, like they're so nonsensical. Like they want you to believe, brainwash you, and all this nonsensical garbage of theirs to make you believe in all this stuff. And you know, the turn against the CFL. It's nonsensical. It's ridiculous. You know, turn against the CFL and the LeBlanc group. And by the way, and a Grey Cup game will never happen without Mickey Mouse Little Stadium. But by the way, let's face it, Mayor Savage, you're not truthful, and the councillors, you're a disgrace. Really, you are. You're backward, same as the mayor. You have, like, come on, you're a bunch of dumbbells, knuckleheads, boneheads. I mean, really and truly. I mean, you have no vision. Small town, small minds, The defeatist attitude is disgusting. You're an absolute disgrace to our city. And by the way, from the get-go, this was a big snow job by the mayor and the city council. So I don't know why the LeBlanc group got lured into this. Really, I don't know why they did. By the way, I got the thing I wanted to play now, right here. And I'll get back to what I was going to say about these clowns. But LeBlanc was on
that now seems unlikely.
Steve Murphy.
Last week, the regional council.
I'll play it back here to the beginning. See if you can see it.
It's exactly 2 years since we first learned about what was then described as a credible proposal to bring a Canadian Football League team to the Maritimes. Then, as now, it all hinged on building a stadium, something that now seems unlikely to happen. Last week, the Regional Council in Halifax narrowly defeated a motion that would have shut down a funding proposal from Schooner Sports and Entertainment without even taking another look at it, with the majority preferring instead to wait for an analysis of the business case from the municipal staff before taking their final decision in December. Anthony LeBlanc speaks for the proponents, and he is joining us tonight from Ottawa. Mr. LeBlanc, Mayor Mike Savage, who's been pretty positive on this, now says that nobody should be, his words, flooded with optimism about the chances of a proposal for a stadium going ahead. How do you feel?
Well, I don't know if I'd completely mirror the mayor's tone, but I certainly understand where he's coming from. The motion was a surprise to us. We were obviously happy to see it voted down. And subsequently, we were happy to see that there was a subsequent motion to put a little bit more of a tighter time frame on things. I think the good news with that is that, we'll spend the next 4 to 6 weeks working closely with staff, as well as continuing meetings with individual council members to hear any concerns and to try to rectify any concerns that come up.
But are you now resigned to the fact that this thing looks like it could be headed for the scrapyard?
I truly don't feel that's the case. What I do feel, though, is that we are heading towards a decision. And I'm hopeful that, going through this process and spending time and really trying to get through some analysis, because what we're feeling is that there's a lot of confusion around some of the proposals. I think some of the proposals are being somewhat mushed together. And I think we, as the proponents, need to do a better job of explaining really the risk mitigation that went into this, and really a fair amount of work that we've done over the past year to, as you mentioned, almost 2 years, working with senior staff at HRM and other stakeholders.
But if I might, with 8 members of the council already publicly, against the proposal, where do you see any room for optimism? I mean, it's one vote away from being nixed.
Well, it is, and again, I guess if we were pessimistic, we could just pick up and walk away, and we don't feel that that's correct, because what I think everyone needs to remember is we went ahead and released the details of our proposal prior to staff having the ability to review it and come up with a recommendation for council. That's unusual, but that's also, we did that because we were asked to be very open in this process. So I think what's happened is people have forgotten that, senior staff is a very capable group, Mr. Dubé and his staff, and they need to do their job, and that's what we're putting our hopes on, so to speak. But also, again, when we look at this proposal and we look at the work, and quite frankly, Mr. Dubé and his staff, they worked us over pretty aggressively over the last year to ensure that really the risk is mitigated.
But again, from the get-go, from the very first time you and I discussed this, the politicians, the mayor, the premier, everybody was saying there won't be any public money for a stadium, and yet your funding proposals, all of them, include variants on using public money to build a stadium. So how can you really be surprised that those same politicians are now saying, we're not going to do it?
Well, and again, I wouldn't agree with that comment because we've been pretty open, including my various times meeting with you, Steve, that we will obviously need public involvement. And what we have done by working with senior staff is put together a proposal where, yes, we are asking for HRM to participate, in one of the options that we feel is probably the most municipally friendly at a total of $2 million a year. However, in return for that, they'll receive $1 million payment annually from the team, and then a surcharge is going to be put in place. Really, and the reason for that, Steve, is to ensure that there is no risk to the community.
Yeah.
We've really gone to school on the convention center situation where it was a similar model of a TIF being created, but the development took longer and is taking longer. So Mr. Dubé and his staff said, we can't do that again, and hence why we looked at other teams, and in particular the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Sure.
And all that needs to happen is 11,000 tickets sold per game, which of course we're expecting significantly more than that, but 11,000 tickets per game will ensure that second $1 million is recouped back to HRM.
But if this is really such a low-risk proposition for the municipality, why aren't you and your partners simply borrowing the money and assuming the risk yourselves, if it's a zero risk?
Well, because quite candidly, these facilities are not just for CFL football. One of the other things that's important in our proposal is that we're going to take on all of the operational risk, which is a multi-million-dollar a year endeavor. And look, Halifax has been very open, and I believe it's still in their long-term plan for a community stadium. Mm-hmm. This is, quite frankly, the most municipally friendly stadium deal that's ever been proposed in this country, and quite candidly in North America, where the proponents, ourselves, are looking at multi-million-dollars a year going into this, when the majority of these stadiums are financed almost exclusively through public sector, and in particular, if you look at the most recent stadiums,
but again,
that's been the case.
If it really is zero risk to taxpayers, why not put your own money in it? If there's no risk involved, why not take the profit and run?
Well, and candidly, as I just indicated, we will be contributing roughly $2 million a year towards the capital costs, and then another $2 to $3 million a year in regards to the operation. Steve, that's $4 to $5 million a year coming from the private sector into a facility that will be really used the majority of the time by the community, by Sport Nova Scotia and their umbrella organization. So I don't know how contributing, the concept of $4 to $5 million a year coming from the private sector through rent, through surcharges, and through operations is the private sector not being involved.
You will be aware, you may sense that there seems to be growing support for some sort of a stadium on the Wanderers' grounds. Not the sort of permanent structure, the magnificent large facility you're proposing, but something else on the Wanderers' grounds. Has that thing not really taken the wind out of the sails of this?
Look, we've talked to the folks at the Wanderers. Derek Martin, as I've said a number of times, is a tremendous operator. I've had the opportunity to attend games at the Wanderers grounds. I mean, the reality is the Wanderers ground is a much more condensed footprint. Trust me, we love the location. We wish it would work for a larger scale operation. But no, I mean, I don't feel that that's going to take the wind out of the sails of this facility because of what this facility would be able to accomplish for HRM in the province.
Scale of 1 to 10, what are the chances this is going to go ahead?
I am a betting man, but I'm not going to put any bets on this. But we continue to be optimistic that we can get this across the line soon.
Anthony A.Leblanc, Schooner Sport and Entertainment. We appreciate your time tonight, as always. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. A.Leblanc, joining us tonight from Parliament Hill. Back with more here in just a moment.
So you can talk what you want about the A.Leblanc group, but I'll tell you something. He has a lot more class than any city council down there. I mean, I like certain city councilors, Carson and Walker and a few others, but not many. I have no respect for them, and I don't have any respect for them. They're a bunch of bullies and a bunch of dummies, and they're ignorant. And maybe the problem is they're not in his league. I mean, they're not in his league, and it's obvious they aren't. I mean, how can they even quantify this proposal? Seriously. I mean, they don't even know how many games are in the CFL regular season. And they run down their own brand of football Can you imagine? They do. That's what they did. They're a bunch of bullies. What they did was despicable. It was so ignorant and so unclassy, so unprofessional. And LeBlanc, they can say what you want about counselors, but he'd eat you up and spit you out, man. He's way more professional than you. And he didn't knock and bully you, right? And they never have the LeBlanc group. Okay, and and you know what? If you don't know how many regular games in the CFL, including you, Mayor Savage, you're no different. You're just like the rest of the naysayer, no vision counselors down there, bully counselors. Come on, you are. I'm telling you, my God, Mayor Kelly, come back, man! Oh man! Oh man! We'd have like. And with some of the other councillors would have stayed. I don't know. We got a real mess on our hands. But some of the other councillors before weren't much better either. But how can these councillors, the mayor, the way they acted last Tuesday, how can they ever? They haven't even dived into this. They can't. The components of this. I mean, they can't even fathom. They don't even know what they're doing. They're out to lunch. They're out to lunch. I mean, he clarified it, went over it. If the city can't support that, and I don't like the $10 surcharge, and I don't know what's going to happen about these rental fees on hotels, rental fees, and on rental cars. I don't think that's going to fly with the province. But they need the province to come to the table. But they should be coming to the table in a different way. Okay, to pay their share. Same with Trudeau. Trudeau got to come to the table too, and the city got to come to the table and do your job. And city council, start educating yourself. Start learning about the parts of this and the mechanics of this and the components of this. I mean, it's obvious you don't have any business background. All you are is naysayers. You want to attack them as billionaires. You got no class. You run down the CFL. Well, the CFL is going to be fine. It just needs. But in my view, a new commissioner and new direction, and they have to make necessary needed changes that I went over with. And then they're going to be fine, especially with a 10th team. But the problem here in Halifax, from the beginning, from the get-go, Mayor Savage and the disgraceful city councils, they never wanted the CFL team. Because they would have wanted the CFL team because of the LeBlanc group, and Randy Ambrosie went on, Rick House saying that it's going to be a world-class facility. But Randy Ambrosie, were you wrong? And where are you, Ambrosie? Where are you? Disappeared? Okay? I think you better come back and validate that statement you made, because that's not what's happening here. And it's because of Mayor Savage's no vision attitude, defeatist attitude too, and the councillors, their naysayer, no vision, defeatist attitude as well, combined. And that's why you're getting a community stadium. They don't even want the CFL here. They don't even want a Grey Cup game in Halifax. They wouldn't be building this Mickey Mouse, rinky dinky little half-bone, half a stadium with outhouses and benches and a tacked up structure is probably going to blow down. They're a disgrace. And by the way, the LeBlanc group put probably the Grey Cup game in 10 years in there just to maybe, get them a bit excited and maybe on board, but they squashed that from the beginning. Mayor Savage, through the wrenching, maybe we don't need basically a CFL model stadium, maybe we need this little rinky-dinky little community stadium. Then why did you say to people that I know, Mayor Savage said, wouldn't it be great to have a Grey Cup game in Halifax? Well, you contradict yourself, and you're not being truthful, because you can't have a Grey Cup game with that piece of, come on, rinky-dinky little piece of junk of a stadium, and it's your fault, because you're the one that went along with Mason and all of them down there, went all a community stadium. You went along with it, and this is what you're going to get, and you're never going to get it. And you don't want the CFL, because if you did, you wouldn't be wanting to build this little Mickey, rinky-dinky little embarrassing. It's laughable. Half a stadium. So they never wanted a CFL team. The Mayor Savage and the City Council. They never ever wanted a Grey Cup game in Halifax. They're all a bunch of, Mayor Savage, you're not very honest. You're a typical liberal liar. That's what you are. You are. And all of you councillors down there, you're a disgrace. The way you act, it looks like you didn't get out of elementary school. You don't have any brains. So you have no vision. All you are is a bunch of bullies. Ignorant, rude, naysaying, pompous bunch of bullies. It's all you are. And Mayor Savage can put you in that category. So I've done enough of that. But I'm not very happy about it at all. But I want to get that out there. Okay? And I feel sorry for the LeBlanc group now after hearing that, because I was pretty impressed with that. I was pretty impressed by that. And he has some good components and good parts there that this should fly, man, to make it work. And maybe in 10 years they'll build the other half of the stadium. But I can't imagine the CFL approving a CFL franchise for this type of facility, this rinky-dinky little Mickey Mouse little community stadium, and definitely would never ever be able to host a Grey Cup. So this is what you're going to get. You're a laughingstock, Halifax. You're a small town. You're small-minded bunch of naysayer, bunch of dummies for city councilors, and a dunce, a bonehead of a mayor that hasn't got a clue or a brain. You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. You're all about your liberal political card. You're brutal. You're brutal. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of living in the city and being a property tax owner. I'm being screwed big time. We all are. All our property tax owners that are paying your salary. We've been wanting a CFL team and a real CFL model stadium and a Grey Cup game in Halifax for decades. It's obvious you don't want. All you want is criminal graffiti, drug panhandlers, stunt driving, speeding, litter dump all over our city. You made our city, you bunch of liberals, a criminal hall, and that's what you want. You're in line with what Trudeau wants with his open borders in Quebec. Yeah, and yet they voted him back in. You liberals are ruining our city and ruining our country. I'm sorry, you're ruining our country. And by the way, I could say something else, but I won't. Okay, I better check to see what else I want to say. Yeah, I want to go back to my. I want to get off that because I'm gonna really get upset. And the thing too, to say the Wanderers grounds in comparison, and their soccer, nothing, all due respect to their soccer team, but the Wanderers grounds is a little makeshift little bench stadium, 6,000, and you can't compare them, okay, the Canadian Premier Soccer League, or even the Mooseheads, or the lacrosse team, with a CFL team. It's at a whole different level, professional sports level, and you just can't compare them. And you don't want this for our city? You guys are a bunch of losers. Bunch of dummies and bunch of losers. Knuckleheads. Anyway, okay, I went over that. Oh yeah, so what I want to do now, quickly, I only got a few minutes, but I want to read this, my CFL Red Zone rule in a nutshell, because I want to go over this a bit. I hope I have enough time. I want to read this. My CFL Red Zone rule in a nutshell, okay? And here's the first part intro, okay? When you're watching a CFL game, okay, practically every CFL game, my super exciting, naturally, perfectly tailor-made for CFL 3-down football, CFL Red Zone rule is there, just staring the CFL right in the eye, just waiting to be adopted and made part of a CFL 3-down game. And what would you rather have? More distasteful 2-down football stops in the red zone, resulting in more boring, predictable, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goals in the red zone, and CFL fans booing loud because they naturally want their team to go for it, okay, on 3rd down in the red zone to score a touchdown, because CFL teams, only go for it on the 1-yard line on 3rd down in the red zone, and don't go for it on the 5, 4, 3, or even the 2-yard line on 3rd down in the red zone to score a touchdown. Or would you rather have my super exciting Spyder CFL Red Zone rule that will completely eliminate the 2 biggest killers and 2 biggest turn-offs of our CFL 3-down game in the red zone, and have CFL teams playing exciting 3-down football every time they are in the red zone to score touchdowns with Spyder's CFL Red Zone rule? I believe the answer is a no-brainer. Now my Spyder CFL Red Zone rule in a nutshell. My Spyder CFL red zone rule is simply an enforcement rule, like the CFL two-point convert enforcement overtime rule if a CFL team scores a touchdown. Other than my Spyder's CFL red zone rule takes to a whole new level. As well, CFL teams can play CFL three-down football now in the red zone. But the problem is they don't, majority of the times, unless they are on 1 yard line. So with Spyder's CFL red zone rule, if a CFL team needs the third down to score a touchdown in the red zone, they have to go for it. I just lost my thing. They have to go for it using my Spyder CFL red zone rule. And if a CFL team in offense is stopped on third down in the red zone maintaining possession of the ball, a CFL team gets rewarded with my complementary and compatible Spyder CFL red zone rule kick, but a more challenging kick from the 35-yard line. That adds more entertainment, excitement, and drama in the red zone in the CFL with my Spyder CFL red zone rule. If a CFL team then on defense stops the CFL team in the red zone on third down using my Spyder CFL red zone rule to prevent a touchdown from being scoring, it will be a huge defensive play on the defensive side of the ball, and even a bigger defensive play if they force a CFL team on offense in the red zone, outside the red zone on third down to prevent my Spyder CFL red zone rule kick. And it will make my Spyder CFL red zone rule, okay, the optional provision part of my rule, 100% foolproof and cover all the scenarios. My optional provision part of my rule. If a CFL team in the last 10 seconds of the game has the ball in the red zone and stays in the red zone in first, second, and third down, using my second version of my proposed CFL red zone rule, they will be able to opt to kick my Spyder CFL red zone kick from the 35-yard line for 3 points to win the game or to tie the game and force it in overtime. The CFL could have it applied to the last 10 seconds of both halves of the game, or have it applied to only the last 10 seconds of the game. The optional provision part of my second version of my proposed CFL red zone rule, or Spyder CFL red zone rule, would not apply to the current CFL overtime format because there is no clock. I personally like my rule playing out on its own, but I added my optional provision part to cover all the scenarios if they were to arise and to make it 100% foolproof. Okay, so I